So why don't we just get right into the panel premise as far as the mobile first theme, and whether that describes the approach that any of you take to extending into mobile. Maybe Hal, you could start with that, since Condé Nast has staked a lot on its push into tablet publishing in particular. So
sure,
we can just talk about that.
Sure. So mobile first. We take an approach that's just not standard across every single brand. We don't think that every brand that we have has the same intent. And one of the concerns around mobile first is, what is your business goal? What is your strategy? What is your business value? And does it really translate to mobile? It doesn't always make sense. Now, if you're talking about a development strategy of desktop and smartphone, sure, mobile first is a great strategy, because what it does for you is it gets rid of, on a publishing site, you'll see a lot of clutter in the right rails of the websites and on desktop, and then we try to translate that down to a smartphone with this little bit of real estate, and it's terrible, right? It's slow to load, you scroll forever, it doesn't have a ton of value. And when you start thinking mobile first, in a sense, you start thinking better about your product all around with a really healthy reset, I think.
Right, okay. Chris, do you want to chime in on that?
Mobile first, yeah, there's no set philosophy. I think it's depending on the situation. You want fans to have a better experience, you want them to be engaged at all times. So we have a Game Center Live product where you can stream actual live games. There's certain instances where the big screen's bigger and better, and we want to have a second screen experience to really get you going. But I think from a product perspective, yes, and even more so from a marketing and advertising perspective, you want to be true to the medium, to the screen. So we really look at cross-platform buys, but making sure that mobile really sings on a mobile screen. So all the rich media elements and activations, I think, have been a boom to the industry. And that's a way to separate mobile marketing from, say, broadband, where targeting is far superior at this point.
Mm-hmm. And Gabriel, from the agency perspective, how do you advise your clients? Do you preach the mobile first gospel, or do you have a different approach?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the situation. I mean, in some cases, some of our clients are mobile only, so by default it has to be mobile first.
Right.
Some brands that we work with are now changing their kind of perspective into the importance of mobile. And in some cases, brands are in catch-up mode. Mm-hmm. They didn't really expect how quickly the traffic and monetization side of things has shifted in the past year or so towards mobile, from desktop to mobile. So
they're getting a third or maybe more of traffic from mobile now. Yeah.
Yeah. So and so some brands that we advise to do it right is, you really need to, when you think about mobile first, you have to start with a blank slate. Like some companies, to save money and kind of do a half-assed job to just mobilize their online site to mobile, versus really understanding the mobile consumer and their behaviors, and design it in a way where it's optimal for the same user who is maybe on desktop but on a mobile can react differently and navigate and drive purchase in a different way than on desktop. So it's really important. And what we're seeing now is, like, we're getting to a point, even smartphone and tablet require a very unique sort of flow and UX that is optimal for each type of sort of device, because the user, the way they convert can be very different. For example, like tablet, in the travel category, in a lot of our clients, we're seeing like data that backs up the tablet better built for travel planning and kind of vacation planning versus smartphone. Like, most bookings are actually happening day of for a hotel that night. Right. And that's very different in terms of what you want to make most prominent in the application or mobile website on smartphone versus tablet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, apps have been a key part of, or essential part of, Condé Nast's efforts. Can you discuss that a little bit, and the challenge that's presented of developing across platforms and
Start with the
technology?
opportunity and then we'll move to the challenge. So, I mean, the opportunity is huge, right, in that we can reach consumers in the way that they want to be reached, right, and at the time they want to be reached. We know that people who read our digital magazines, they read the print magazine too, a lot of times. They just read them at different times or in different places. So what we've created is this great convenience and this great user experience for a user, and that's the great opportunity. Device fragmentation, yes, absolutely, it's a big challenge. We do a lot of work to be able to put our content on every single device that we possibly can, and we want it to perform the same way on every device. We want it to render the same way on every device. We want that great experience everywhere, and there's a lot of effort that goes into doing that. And I'm, for one, not cheering for a third player because it means yet another device I got to think about.
Right. No Windows Phone to
Well,
worry
we're
about
on
top
Windows
of
Phone
everything
too,
else.
so
Yeah.
we're on pretty much any device you could think of.
Right. And then for the NHL also, apps, you mentioned the Game Center app has been a big part of the strategy. Does that have a lot to do with the two-screen viewing potential for people
Well, it
watching?
does. So analytics-wise, I would, if you take anything away, hire the best analytics people you can, because look, these are all changing behaviors. We don't know where, 5 years from now, what's going to happen and how you're going to be interacting, but we spend a lot of time looking at metrics. So app versus mobile web, we see more than twice the amount of page views and engagement, time spent, than mobile web. Mobile web has its place. It's it's the internet. There's more data that you can keep looking at if you're looking to figure out how to spell Khabibulin, the great goalie. It's silent K. That's what mobile web is for. It's for the people that don't have smartphones. It's for international users that maybe don't have that we don't haven't quite thought of distribution strategy in a particular country. But that to us, we look at trying to not further fragment our audience, but really focus in a couple of key properties. So Game Center is our flagship. We've done some second screen stuff. We have a predictive gaming app out there. We are in the gaming space, so the casual gaming space. Trying not to overlap with all of these because we're fortunate enough to have a fan base that loves us and keeps coming back. Witness the lockout, and they still came back. So so we want to make sure we have the best effort for the smallest amount of products.
Okay. And in terms of the Game Center app, do you know how many users you have, or for the predictive game app?
I do.
I mean, are you happy with the level?
No, it's good. We keep growing and growing, which is great. So Canada is obviously a big market. They take up a nice chunk of share as well as international, because it's like 25% of our labor force is from Eastern Europe and Northern Europe. So consumption is different in different parts. Here it's more tribal in terms of loving hockey but loving your team. And internationally, you have to program a little bit differently because you've got fans of players and nationality matters. So again, back to analytics, you really look at the best experience for your audience.
Right. And there was a New York Times story today about a new ad the NHL is running, and as far as the lockout this season, they said that the crowds have come back strong and the TV viewership has been strong. Have you seen that also in digital or in mobile in particular?
Yeah. So I'd say if you look at broadband versus mobile and just video is obviously sweet spot for us. We own it, and competitive balance against all their sports properties. Video's been gaining. We look at VOD metrics, which is now probably about 15% of total VOD streams when you look at broadband versus mobile. But live streaming, that in the moment during the game, it's closer to 50% of all live streams now. So mobile, again, back to behaviors, it's amazing growth because last year it was a fraction of that.
Right. And Gabriel, as far as how you advise clients on apps, it can be an expensive undertaking, 6 figures to create an app, plus promotion on top of that. So how do you talk to clients about whether or not they should, what plays into that decision, whether or not they should go ahead with a branded app?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The investment needed to properly build the app and promote it really requires to have rigorous kind of scrutiny on and whether building a branded app makes sense for the client. Most of the cases we advise against it. Unless like there's a very specific reason that will drive the consumer to continue using it and adds value, whatever it's utilitarian or some sort of content that drives them back. But it goes both sides too. Like if we build an app for a client to do that, they have to also continue to invest resources in development and updating the content to have high retention rates and stickiness and have unique content. And for the most part, like a lot of clients have a branded app, but kind of when the campaign's over, they just it dies off and it drops down in rankings and people delete the app. So it's really important to take those into consideration. The other thing on the media side, which is what I focus more on, is really understanding the app marketplace and educating the clients that especially in the U.S. it's so competitive and saturated. And it takes a fairly large investment to even have visibility in the App Store. And if an app is not organically adding value, you're basically just spending a lot of money to artificially have a high ranking, and then even if they download the app, they're not going to use it again, and the ranking just drops. So what we're seeing in terms, some trends and things that when we do advise to build an app is, for example, entertainment is a good example. Like studios are now leveraging their IP, and if that's a big X factor. If the IP alone can like generate interest. Like for example, Disney has Mickey Mouse in a game. It's not really about how good the game is. It's just because Mickey Mouse is on there, like people want to download it, kids want to download it. So, if that can be leveraged, then it may make sense. The other thing to factor is like we're seeing a trend where the paid app side is actually less competitive. Like most of the revenue is coming from in-app purchases through a freemium model, but in some cases it may make sense to produce a 99 cents or $1.99 app, paid app, and it's much less competitive there. And in some cases, it can generate a higher return than doing a freemium model.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And what about advertising within the app? You talked about earlier today about King pulling out ads from its games because.
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing is games, especially games like that. If 100% of the revenue is based on ad monetization, a lot of those games end up not being that successful. The types of gaming clients that we do see are successful is when ad revenue is a part of it, but the majority of the revenue is coming from in-app purchase. So because the margin from these, running ads, the impression is very commoditized. In the way that ads are being served and targeted right now. So the cost of that impression is way too small for apps to be really successful and make money just solely on ad revenue. And so the King example, the reason why they probably took off the ads because like it's not a big part of their revenue, and a majority is probably coming from in-app purchases. So that alone, and hopefully they spent the increase the retention and in-app purchases even more by removing ads because the user experience is better, and increasing that LTV because by removing ads they probably think people want to play it more and it's less intrusive and things like that.
Right. Okay. On the mobile web design side, another term that's been thrown a lot around this year is responsive design, and I wondered how does that, if at all, fit in with what you're doing at Condé Nast Haller? Is that something separate from mobile first?
Sure. So we talk about responsive all the time, and we have a couple of responsive sites. For those of you who don't know what responsive design is, essentially you design one site and you deliver that same site to every device, and it changes how it looks based on the size of that screen that you're looking at and the width of the screen in particular. The challenge with responsive design, I think, there's a lot of challenges technically, but I think the biggest challenge is really understanding your user and your user behavior and what they're looking to do on a different device. So if you're just fundamentally, if you're sending the same exact thing to every single device, desktop, smartphone, tablet, you're making a certain assumption that your user actually wants the same thing when they come on every one of these devices. So this is not, never mind all the technical challenges involved in it, and I think it's, all of us really want to provide the best user experience across every device size, and that's a solution towards getting there. But it alone is not a solution, right? You have to think about your particular use case. In our case, I think, again, not all of our brands are the same, and so for Teen Vogue and Glamour, we do have responsive sites. We have a couple more coming.
How come for those sites in particular?
Sure. Because for them, there is that core belief that for their users, they want the same thing no matter what device they come from. One thing is for sure, no matter which device a user comes on, your content needs to be available on all of them, right? Because your content is getting shared on links on Facebook. It's getting found in search. And you can't, how many users are getting to a mobile website because they responded to an email on their smartphone, or they're digging through Facebook on a smartphone? Well, the content has to be there. So, they made that decision that that's right for them. But for other brands, they're still trying to figure out, does that really make sense for us? And should the use case for Condé Nast Traveler be different? Are people coming on a smartphone for a different reason, typically, than they would be if they were coming on desktop?
Right, but smartphones in particular don't play as big a role.
In what regard?
Or is it just, relative to tablets when you're thinking of...
Well, so
your Condé Nast
tablets
Traveler?
aren't that far from desktop. Right. The iPad Mini
Yeah.
changes things because the form factor, you're not giving the best experience if you're delivering the same exact site and not looking any different to tablet. And the reality is that most of our sites still do that. And that's where responsive can really excel, right? If you can put together a design where you for different devices, you feel the behavior is the same, and you want to give that best user experience. You don't want people to have to zoom in. It's just
Right,
it's just
the
not
pinch and zoom and...
yeah, that's not going
Right.
to convince me to read or buy or anything.
Right, that's just a barrier, okay.
Is it true that Anna Wintour's anti-responsive design, is that the real reason?
I cannot speak about Anna Wintour.
Gabriel, where does M&C Saatchi stand on responsive design? Is it part of what you do?
Yeah. So, responsive design, there's a lot of benefits. Especially a lot of the brands we work with, more and more so, like a consumer's first brand experience is happening on a mobile device. So, when you think about that, to really maximize the scale and to reach everyone with the best, maybe not the best, but like at least a mobile optimized experience at scale, factoring all the different form factors and browsers and OSs through one single platform, it makes sense. But to your point, like a big challenge, what we're seeing is the better we get with analytics and understanding mobile consumer behavior by device, it varies a lot. So when we start segmenting users as simple as just by device, responsive design limits the adaptability of customizing the optimal experience by device. It has to be kind of one sort of, like the content may change based on the size of the screen, but it's all like in the same kind of place and order.
Right.
Some cases, on an iPhone, like travel again, back to that, where hotels tonight probably should be prominent on a smartphone device on the mobile website. And on tablet, it may be vacation planning or some planning tools it should be more prominent. And you can't really do that when it's just responsive design and everyone getting the same experience.
Okay, yeah. But is responsive design, is it more of a start? You should think of it more as a starting point than be all and end all. That there's got to be some customization.
Oh yeah. The next kind of stage, like the same way, even talking about on mobile web, same thing for, on the creative side, rich media. There's a big push probably coming soon, and we're kind of leading this with some beta partners, where dynamic content that's data-driven is a big part of that. So if you think about, a custom personalized experience based on using mobile data, can kind of reorder the content based on certain behaviors that whether it's when they, coming back to the site and they've done a certain thing in the past, that type of content will be more prominent the next time they come back to the site. So those are things that we're looking at, and kind of like taking it a step further is also understanding the same user who visits the desktop version of the site and mobile, really tying that together and really optimizing the web experience based by using both pieces of data for the same user. And that's really, I think, the future of dynamic responsive design. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Chris, we know that for Condé Nast, tablets have been a major focus for magazine publishing. Could you talk a little bit about with what you've seen, any differences between smartphone and tablet use, maybe especially with regard to second screen?
Yeah, we've launched on both. It was interesting. So predictive gaming, we have something called Nhl Pre-Play, where you're watching the game on the big screen, and we're asking questions in real time based on what you just saw. So it's a game. It's a video game. We launched it at the start of last playoffs. Started out on the iPad just to get out there quickly, do a bit of a pilot, and came back with iPhone after the fact. The phone actually blew it away. So where we made a decision to go iPad because it's a bigger screen, we think that there are more interactivity, more things you can show. I think it's just the simplicity of what we built, which is a question pops up, you click on it, you see points, you can interact with your friends, but it doesn't need to have a big screen. It's more about the convenience of having your phone on you. So in some cases, I think video is a better experience for obvious reasons, but there's a case where we were proven wrong, actually, and wasn't a terrible decision, but we could have done better by starting with phone.
Right. Yeah, because you would think just intuitively that the tablet is, would make sense in that scenario. Now, as far as Chris, as far as social networking becoming a much bigger part of mobile and really shifting a lot of that activity shifting over to mobile, do you keep that in mind? Is social features become a bigger part of any of your mobile initiatives?
Yeah, look, it's a connective tissue. I don't think that it's media per se, as opposed to just making sure that fans are connected, whether they just want to speak to each other or their friends, fans. But yeah, we've integrated. Look, I mean, Twitter and TV go hand in hand, so you can't be, you can't distance yourself too much from that. But we think that people come to us for different things. We're not going to replicate Twitter, so stats and information and other things will complement that as well. But no, absolutely. Look, I mean, we just want to keep figuring out how to better our relationship with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the bigger platforms, and we'll try everything. And most things do stick.
Okay. And just looking more broadly at, Gabriel, this is probably a question mostly for you, of mobile budgets. Bon & Bao is here today, and Mondelez has made a big point of saying that they're committing 10% of budget to mobile, which is a high level. So I just wonder with your clients, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to my earlier point. I mean, it really depends on the client. Some are mobile only, and some are cross-platform. But even what's interesting, even mobile only clients, although it's a much higher allocation of the budget towards mobile, they still can sometimes justify, do some marketing mix analysis to put money into traditional media like TV and things like that. But at the very least, like in terms of the volume or the size of the mobile budgets, we're seeing that grow very exponentially, basically. Even when you combine both mobile only and cross-platform kind of brands. And especially on the cross-platform side, it's very exciting to see, like, they're coming to us to really understand and asking us, how much should we spend to meet these objectives? And a lot of times, what I implore everyone to do in these situations is to really understand, like, the trends in the forecast of how historically the growth in mobile traffic shifting towards mobile, and to factor that in, because that's ultimately how you're going to justify the spend. And it's not just about just, arbitrarily just saying like, X amount just to test it out. Sometimes it makes sense, and you know that's the only way in, and to really prove it and scale from there. But what we really do is with our analytics team and strategy team is to really forecast with strong sort of assumptions on why you should be spending X amount in order to reach your goals, based on all this historical data that we're seeing on the back end from your side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Looks like we just have a few minutes left, so if there's any questions out there, we can, over here.
I'm Nate from, excuse me for a second, but I wanted to ask Hal about the strategy that Condé Nast has when they reproduce some of their magazines in an iPad edition. What's the thought process behind just reproducing a static, flat image that's running in a magazine?
A replica?
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, these still really are replicas, but they're better replicas in a sense, right? What we have, and the reason why we don't really love to put basically PDFs out there, it's a terrible reading experience, right? I mean, again, we were just talking about this earlier. You're back to that pinch and zoom mentality, and that's just not going to drive the same level of quality. It's not going to excite our advertisers. It's not going to excite our users. It's just getting it on another device versus giving another great experience.
Sure, but I mean specifically in terms of the advertising pages that you're running within the app that don't do anything, that don't take advantage of the device like your article pages are. It's simply a reproduction of a flat image that I can't even click on.
You can't click on a page in a magazine, right? Like, so there's still value there, right? I mean, you're certainly, would you just walk away from that kind of value as an advertiser? Right? You've already bought the print product. You've got that full page ad, people holding their hands. There's clearly value there. Now, it's up to the agencies and advertisers if they want to spend for more premium ad, and we certainly have those, and we do have a good amount of those, and certainly we absolutely encourage it.
And native advertising has become a bigger.
Absolutely, and so whether we get ads that really take advantage of the device from the agencies, we love that. I mean,
to add to that, I mean, what we see like right now today in mobile, like the ecosystem is on the supply side is like there's two extremes. There's like one where if you want scale, you don't get transparency, you don't know where your ads are running, and it's very cost efficient. But on the other side, if you want premium ad experiences and it makes sense for the campaign, then we go to people, to publishers like you guys, and more interactive, sort of high impact sort of sponsorships that are more integrated, through Zenio or Pixel Mag, things like that, to make it increase transparency in the premium inventory, but still helping improve the scale when we can buy through some platforms like those examples. But a lot of cases, just by being in a premium environment, we can tell the client with high certainty that based on the composition of the person, the audience reading your magazine, it's very targeted, and we can target this audience with a very high impact unit, and we can justify the cost of that unit because the value of that sort of audience is very high, and that's and we see that on the back end when we look at conversion rates.
Yeah, and I would just add one. Sorry, I don't want to use all the time on one question, but one thing you have to remember about Condé: a lot of people read our magazines for the ads. I mean, people buy Vogue to flip through ads as much as they do for the content. So it is an important part of our product.
Right. That's why the Vanity Fair ends up being that thick in the fall.
That's why.
Okay. Any other question? There.
Right here.
Yeah. Sorry.
Hi. Actually, a question for Chris. Actually, two questions. The first one is, why aren't you in Chicago right now?
Leaving Saturday.
But awesome. The second one is around your app. So when you're in the kind of a class of marketer who makes a significant investment in the quality and the promotion of the NHL app, and it's something that you are blitzing to consumers across channel, including in venue, I'm curious about how you go about measuring that from an omni-channel lens, and where you see what types of media are driving the most activity, downloads for you.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Measurement's a problem in the industry in general. So we have TV, events, and all the digital screens. And typically we'll have a sponsor who comes and buys across everything. So, what we do is we figure out what metrics are important and in some cases have to report separately in a siloed way, which is unfortunate, but, that's the reality. Look, I mean, we use a separate ad server for video on mobile than we do with broadband changing. But we have omniture tracking. We have all of these different elements that are kind of telling the story, and that's our job, to be able to tell the story. It's just not where it needs to be.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much.